After the proclamation of 1763, the King and Parliament passed the Sugar Act. When sugar came into the colonies, it came in the form of either refined sugar or molasses. The price of the sugar coming into the colonies had certain duties, import fees, or tariffs that went to pay for the cost of the government regulating it, and it was part of the price of the sugar. So if you were going to pay 10 shillings for a pound of sugar, you knew that a portion of the price went to pay for all of those fees and duties, which might amount to 1 shilling out of the 10 shillings. There were times that we thought that those tariffs were a bit high, but we trusted that that was the cost of running government. In this particular case, the price of sugar was all of a sudden significantly more expensive, and we wondered why. Was there a violent hurricane? Maybe there was a drought or a crop bug infestation. What we found out was that Sam Adams, who was in the Massachusetts legislature, had looked closely at the recently passed Sugar Act, and he found out that the price of sugar remained the same. It was the same price before the increase as it was afterwards. But the King and Parliament doubled the amount of regulatory fees, which resulted in the higher price. Now, Mr. Adams didn't stop there. He looked into the cost of the regulatory fees. He found out that the cost to administer and regulate the sugar coming into the colony also remained the same. So he asked the obvious question, if the double portion of the fees was not a fee to regulate the sugar, what was the large increase of fees to pay for? What he found out was that the doubled portion of the fee was actually a tax that was designed to pay for the French and Indian War. It was a hidden direct tax, which was passed by Parliament to specifically pay for the war, and not an indirect tax that was to pay for the government cost of regulating the sugar. It was his opinion and the opinion of the Massachusetts legislature that England could not pass a direct tax on the colonies in that manner. They said that that tax needed to be voted on by the colonial legislatures, that they needed to discuss and approve the tax. But the colonies weren't even consulted about it. The tax had been masterfully hidden or buried in the doubling of those duties. Why? To cause as little notice and grief as possible in the colonies. They must have thought that we would not approve of the tax, so they hid them. That's not a way to build trust, is it? As a result, James Otis stood up in the Massachusetts legislature and loudly shouted a 5-word declaration that became a rallying cry for all of the colonies. Taxation without representation is tyranny. Throughout the entire Revolutionary War, that rallying cry reminded us that we had to stand up against the increasing and constant encroachments of the King and Parliament against our rights as Englishmen. Through the diligence of Sam Adams, we became aware that the hidden tax was an intrusion into our representative assemblies as Englishmen. We were being robbed of our opportunity to debate and vote on whether we should approve or disapprove of the tax. For Parliament, it had been a calculated assault against our rights. If they could decide at any time to lay a tax on us without our input, then quite frankly, they could do anything to the colonies that they wanted to do. So we knew that we had to stand up, and we did. We loudly spoke against the Sugar Act in our different colonial legislatures, in the newspapers, and wherever we congregated. But it made no difference, and more was yet to come.